It's the Friday Sometimes Daily Show. I'm Philip Edwards. He's Michael Palmer. And did you hear the Disintegration multiplayer servers are getting shut down in November?
What the hell is disintegration?
Exactly. Let's move on to the actual story for today.
In an interview with Christopher Dring from Games Industry Biz, Jim Ryan, head of PlayStation, was asked about if Sony had any plans to follow in the footsteps of Game Pass by releasing Sony's first-party titles to the PlayStation equivalent of Game Pass, PlayStation Now. His response was, well, it was something. Quote, "For us, having a catalogue of games is not something that defines a platform. Our pitch, as you've heard, is new games, great games. We have had this conversation before. We are not going to go down the road of putting new release titles into a subscription model. These games cost many millions of dollars, well over $100 million to develop. We just don't see that as sustainable." End quote.
There is more to his statement, but first I think we should go through that part. The first half is just one big contradiction. He basically said, our platform won't be defined by having video games. It'll be defined by having video games. And the second half is a fallacy. He is saying, to them, it's not sustainable because of how much the games cost to make. But who decides on the budget of the games? They do. And before anyone rushes to the comments to say that they need these incredible budgets to make these incredible games, let me stop you right now. No, you don't. Some of the most ambitious and endearing games that have ever been made were made with a tiny dev team and a shoestring budget. I could go into more detail about this and explain in full why this is the case, but now isn't the time for it. Maybe we'll do an episode on just that. But for now, please just take my word for it. Jim Ryan continued by saying, quote, "We want to make games bigger and better, and hopefully at some point more persistent. So putting those into a subscription model on day one, for us, just doesn't make sense. For others in a different situation, it might well make sense, but for us, it doesn't. We want to expand and grow our existing ecosystem, and putting new games into a subscription model just doesn't sit with that." End quote.
If you can't tell, me and Philip are incredibly well versed in speaking corporate. So, it's my turn to break down that nonsense. They're going to make games bigger and better, but those two things aren't the same. Bigger does not mean better. Looking straight at you, Assassin's Creed, what he's actually doing is laying the groundwork for the normalization of $70 being the default price for Sony first-party titles. And again, before anyone screams inflation and they have to charge more for the games to make up the budget, look to the very next line. Quote, "and hopefully at some point more persistent," end quote. So they have plans to turn at least some of their first-party titles into live service games. Now, unless they're about to break the historical trend, then that means they'll have some form of recurrent user spending. That alone will more than make up for any extra costs they incur. What I don't understand is why? Most of Sony's biggest blockbuster games this generation have been linear, story-driven, tightly scripted experiences that captured people's hearts. So why are they leaning away from that? I mean, it's worked so well for Ubisoft.
That's all we're going to talk about when it comes to the Games Industry Biz interview. Whatever your stance is, we highly recommend giving it a read. It's really enlightening and interesting. But on to an announcement that had me saying, Sony just lost the next generation.
Wait, didn't you say exactly that about Xbox yesterday?
Yeah, but that was yesterday and today is today.
The amazing and insightful commentary people come to the sometimes serious show for. Today is today.
Well, today, I mean, technically it was yesterday I announced it, but shut up. Sony announced that PlayStation 5 will have a 99% compatibility with PlayStation 4 games, so you'll be able to play almost all of your PS4 games on PS5. But that's it. The PS5 will not have any backwards compatibility with PS1, PS2, or PS3. In comparison, Xbox will have full backwards compatibility from all of its older consoles.
Jim Ryan, in an interview with Famitsu, gave the reason why. Quote, "We keep in mind the engineering specialised for the PS5 as we produced the device. In the midst of that, the PS4 already has 100 million players. We thought they ought to want to play PS4 titles on the PS5 as well indeed, so we included compatibility with the PS4. While implementing that, we also focused our efforts on taking in the high-speed SSD and the new controller DualSense at the same time. So, unfortunately, we couldn't reach the implementation of such compatibilities. End quote. For those of you that think I misread that, I did not. We here at the Sometimes Serious Show quote exactly what was said. So yes, it was utter rubbish. So they simply just didn't have enough time to implement it. No word on whether they plan to add it later, though. So, no, Philip, this isn't a death knell for Sony in your imaginary console war.
I know, but just think of the clickbait title we can use now. In all seriousness, I can speak for the entire show when I say, we don't care which console you buy on. As long as you get to play video games you want to play, and as long as you're happy with your purchase, then everything's all right. We're all fighting the same fight, it's just sometimes we get a little confused and shell each other. But as long as you play and enjoy games, then it doesn't matter what platform you play on. We're all gamers, TM.
That's a nice place to leave it. Thanks for joining us for another week, and if you missed an episode, then what are you doing? You need to go back and watch them, otherwise how are you going to keep up with the long-running story arc of two idiots slowly losing their sanity while they attempt to bring you gaming-related stories in a funny and informative way? I don't want to spoil anything, but you'll also miss out on the Easter egg in Season 6, Episode 9 of the long-running, sometimes serious show, Manga. Remember to like, comment and subscribe and come back on Monday, because if you don't, we're going to sneak into your house and replace all of your hair care products with Vaseline. Have a good weekend.